Alright, before the video begins, I have to say something. This girl's avatar looks like a Sonic OC. Okay, that's all I had to say. So Manga made a video about how Twitter artists are trying to quote-unquote fix the character of Nessa, the water-type gym leader from Pokemon Sword and Shield. Then Deviant Crow made a commentary on that, and it really wasn't that good. So Sonic the Hedgehog reject Nico Royem argues against Deviant Crow, and that's where I come in. Alright, let's begin the commentary.
Now, before you start talking about how, manga comment isn't as bad as our normal people, I know that. Not every episode of this show is gonna be me covering an absolute piece of shit. Sometimes we have to, address people that aren't as shitty as Stone Toss, or aren't as shitty as Antunes. Sometimes we need to take a break from those type of topics because after a while they get repetitive and kind of annoying. This is one of those breaks. Speaking of annoying, today we're going to cover Manga Kamen, a creator I really don't care for, honestly. At best, he's, boring, and sometimes I do agree he does make some very good points. But at worst, he's a pretentious asshole. And I want to make a few more disclaimers. Yes, this video is quite old, a year old. That doesn't sound too old to most people, but chances are he might not agree with the topics discussed in this video, and his viewpoints might have changed. But still, it's worth covering. And hell, it could be said the topic was dead when he covered it, and it's definitely way dead now. That art fiasco ended a while ago. But yet again, I cover it because I still feel like it's noteworthy to cover, because there's a lot of bad points that I still kind of see people bring up whenever there's an artist fixing something. And I personally feel like Manga Kamen is a creator that's not criticized enough. There's a lot of videos on his channel that are bad, and I might cover him again in the future, especially if this video does well, and if you tell me down below to cover him again. Without further ado, let's get into the actual video.
What? Did you really just play over a minute of Deviant Crow without addressing anything that she said? Like, this could just be seen as padding out the video, for there are no arguments here. And after all, the main point of commentaries like this one is to present arguments against your target. And I guess you could argue that Nico is using Deviant Crow to give context, but she already gave context earlier.
The YouTuber named Deviant Crow took it to herself to look for videos which are badly done and present hypocritical arguments when it couldn't be further from the truth. Well, in this case at least. I don't know about her other videos, but this is the one that caught my attention. She's talking about the video Manga Kamen made named Fixing Art, Artist Wins, which is about the Nessa whitewashing and fixing her design debacle. Her video is quite something. It's somehow trying to be noble and fix Kamen's video and be on the high ground, but if that were the case, I wouldn't be sitting here and probably would just study for my exams.
So this just comes off as a waste of time.
But of course, you've got those people. The people who act like the moral police and acting like they know how they can fix a design. One such example is this. Now, the artist who did this claims that Nessa is now no longer hypersexualized and her back makes sense. Oh no, a design of a character has sex appeal. Why does that need to be fixed?
Well, it could be argued that Pokemon is a kid's game, so putting sexualization in a game made for children is a bit, inappropriate. And look, I know I'm gonna get some asshat coming in here being like, well, it's not just for kids, and yeah, I agree, it's not just for kids, but it is the main demographic for a game like Pokemon. And personally for me, it's a bit iffy putting in sexualized designs in a game that's targeted towards kids mostly.
When I look at Nessa, I don't see any sexualization. All I can see is a woman wearing a swimsuit, who at the same time is a water-type gym leader, by the way. Seems sort of logical for her to be wearing a swimsuit. Kids won't look at her and be like, I wanna sticky my pee-pee into her. Pokemon isn't that much about the human characters, they are more like the secondary characters to the games. Note how I said games because the anime is a mixture of both pretty much. The real stars of Pokemon are the Pokemon. Nessa's design is perfectly justified.
Well, you might see a woman in a swimsuit. I see a woman with curves showing off skin. Like, as a heterosexual guy who talks with other heterosexual guys, I can safely say that they tend to lust over a woman's body if she has a small waist and big hips. Men want to stick their pee-pees into girls with hips, okay? And that's ignoring how the artist's rendition of Nessa is wearing longer shorts when compared to her counterpart. Men also tend to like what's it's below the waist, if you know what I mean. Also, though you're obviously not wrong with saying that Pokemon games are about the Pokemon themselves, I fail to see how that supports your argument. Pokemon might be the main focus of the games, but trainers are still a crucial part towards the main series Pokemon games, because without trainers, we wouldn't have the Pokemon gym battles due to the Pokemon gym system, which is led by humans. And this isn't even mentioning how the character of Nessa became popular amongst Rule 34 artists because of the way she dresses. I'll link a Know Your Meme page about it in the description below. The image gallery is filled with fan art, and I'm not allowed to use that type of artwork due to YouTube's policies. But let it be known that Nessa has a lot of perverted fans. And of course, that's obviously not a result of the Pokemon Company. They're still making a game series intended for children. But it is definitely a result of the way Nessa dresses and her desired design.
Nessa's design is perfectly justified. Hell, the original designer could have given her a regular swimsuit and people like you still would have been displeased, since she is showing off so much skin in a children's game.
Ah yes, my favorite type of argument. Basing points on assumptions. Like, given the hypothetical situation that Nessa wore a less revealing swimsuit, how would you know that Deviant Crow would be upset by that? Is it because the swimsuit that doesn't show her tummy is still revealing? Yeah, well, the two-piece that shows her stomach is a lot more revealing than the one that the social media artist made. But going back to my main point, I seriously want to know how you know about what Deviant Crow would and would not be offended by.
The original designer could have given her a regular swimsuit and people like you still would have been displeased, since she is showing off so much skin in a children's game.
Because as far as I'm concerned, the only person that knows about the stuff that Deviant Crow is offended by is, well, Deviant Crow.
I don't even think Carmen is entirely right on this point, because there's absolutely nothing sexualized about Nessa's design. What a sin for a water-type trainer to wear water-suited clothing!
Just because Nessa has a specific reason for wearing a type of clothing, that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, let's say that I showed you an overly sexualized character with big breasts and a bikini on the beach, and you say, oh, but she has a reason to be dressed like that. Though you might be correct, the character is still sexualized. Nessa might have an excuse to wear a swimsuit, but she could still be seen as a sexualized character because of her revealing outfit. Now, I don't think that the character of Nessa is technically inappropriate for a game like Pokemon either. But the difference between me and you is that I actually try to see why someone would consider Nessa to be an inappropriate character, whereas you just say she's wearing a swimsuit as a justification for her look. Your arguments come off as a lot more close-minded, if that makes any sense.
And another thing is, not everyone likes the sexualization of characters, whether due to personal reasons or more complex reasons like sexuality. Personally, myself, I don't like it when there's a lot of sexualization in any TV show I watch, especially anime. One of the major reasons I don't watch a lot of anime is because of the sexualization and fan service seems to get away in the plot, and when I come to watch something or play a game, I'm not looking for sexualization. If I wanted something to jack off to, I'd go watch porn. Another thing is, video games are a form of escapism, and some people just want to escape things like sexualization because they may not like it. Have you ever thought of that, manga comment? Also, fixing a character design like this and making it less sexualized is not saying no sexualization. Personally, although I don't like sexualization in my shows, if you like it, that's fine. I'm not going to say anything against that. It's just personally for me, if it was my choice, I would love to see less sexualization in anime.
If I'd want to play a game with a notable sex appeal, I'd play a dating sim or go to a website that rhymes with otaku. But I certainly wouldn't pick Pokemon as my first choice.
Yeah, that's kind of Deviant Crow's point. Deviant doesn't want to see sexualized stuff. Right there, you're essentially supporting Deviant Crow's argument instead of arguing against it, which is the last thing you want to do as a commentator, because your video is supposed to go against Deviant Crow. I mean, in your thumbnail, you made Deviant Crow a roasted turkey on Thanksgiving for a reason, right?
Media that is generally made for entertainment is a form of escapism. That is true, but not everyone is seeking that sort of entertainment to escape boob shots. Sometimes people purposely try to find these kinds of things to be entertained.
Well, Deviant Crow realizes this. She specifically said that if she wanted something sexualized, then she'd go to the hub, meaning that she knows how some people intentionally seek out stuff to get themselves turned on.
When I come to watch something or play a game, I'm not looking for sexualization. If I wanted something to jack off to, I'd go watch porn.
With this point, you're essentially telling Deviant something that she's already well aware of. So, what's the point of this argument?
You even said that you don't have anything against people that like more sexualized content. It's just that you subjectively want to see less of that, and that's valid. Carmen is just of the opinion that the edited version of Nessa is unnecessary and silly since there's no inherent sexualization of the character. Which means that the people that got upset over her so problematic swimsuit got butthurt over nothing. Have you ever thought about that, Crow? There is no need to fix a character's design when there's nothing wrong about it in the first place. The people that complain about the supposed sexualization of Nessa forgot that the other characters also exist in the franchise that were even less. Oh, but we're not going to mention that because everything that has been created in the past is nostalgic and should be upheld and newer things frowned upon.
I mean, not necessarily. For all you know, the people who find Nessa to be problematic might also have issues with the swimsuit wearers of previous games. Yet they are choosing to focus on Nessa because she's the most recent example of what they think is sexualization in Pokemon. Many people kinda sorta have the right to complain about what they want. And that's not even mentioning how Nessa is a much more important character than the rest of these swimsuit wearers because she is a gym leader. Also, I don't want to be that guy, but the way you say Crow is weird, just saying.
Cheese.
Both versions are perfectly fine and Carmen is only saying that there's no need for a fixed version since the first version has no reason to be fixed. Is it really such an issue that Nessa's old tummy isn't covered up?
So this is a pretty big problem with the entire video as a whole. Throughout the video, Nico constantly repeats the point of the original version of Nessa looks fine. Yeah, it's worded differently each time, but at the end of the day, it's still the same point of Nessa is fine. I really don't see why you feel the need to constantly reiterate this point. I know that people in announcements like tornado warnings constantly repeat themselves, but the difference between them and you is that if the people missed what you were saying, then they can always rewind the video. Also, a tornado warning is a much more urgent situation, but details.
Why yes, think of the children. Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Cheese.
Also, quick side note, these canon swim trainers exist. The people that complain about the supposed sexualization of Nessa forgot that the other characters also exist in the franchise that were even less.
Alright, I get it!
But no one is going to take action about their designs. Who's going to take the liability on that one?
Come on, Nico, I already said I was straight. Why do you have to do this to me?
And while I don't personally agree with the change to her back because one, it's a stylistic choice to draw the character design that way, and two, I don't fully agree with the change, or I think it's not possible, especially when it's a stylistic pose.
Hey, Manga Comment, have you ever considered that just because it's a stylistic choice doesn't mean that it's still, not above criticism? People can still find a stylistic choice bad looking and want to fix it. In short, what I'm trying to say is, just because it's a stylistic choice doesn't mean it doesn't look like shit.
Yeah, people can still criticize a stylistic choice if they have the need to do so. Human characters in Pokemon nowadays feel like they have a more unique design when compared to the older ones. Even in the remakes, most characters look so much different than before. It's probably to make them more distinctive, but that's just a guess on my end. Maybe it's because the artist modernized his or her general art style to have more personality and diversity. Characters like Milo and Opal definitely would have looked more ordinary and less stylized if it were any of the earlier generations. But you are free to stick to your own qualms. If you don't like it, so be it. But in this case, it's obvious that the person who redesigned Nessa is under the illusion that she is highly sexualized in the official art, which is baloney. Also, Crow, you do realize that Carmen said he personally doesn't agree with the quote-unquote fixed back version of the drawing. Which means that it's just his side of view because, Pokemon art is stylized. Never did he outright say in his portion that his views are above everyone else's and proclaimed all criticism to be invalid. He only takes issue with it when people claim to have fixed the design.
Yeah, but Deviant never said that Common said that his views are above anyone else's. This is what is known as the straw man fallacy. It's when you tackle an argument that was never made in the first place, and therefore you're misrepresenting your target. Like, the main point of a commentary is to actually respond to what's in front of you. So way to go, you're fallacious, which is kind of a bad thing.
You hate to see it, but I hear lots of people not liking how Danganronpa characters are designed because they look too crazy or something. Which is fine, because it features stylized anime art, and I don't know jack shit about Danganronpa besides the blood being pink. Anime art styles are generally more stylized compared to semi-realistic or realistic drawings. No duh. That's why a real human looking like an anime girl would look quite horrible. You also don't see ancient Egyptian artworks being the 100% correct representation of Egyptian people nowadays. Frankly, when they were drawn, it was way back, but you can still see how it has a clearly stylistic display in focus instead of a realistic one. Like I said, criticism is fine and people are allowed to voice their opinion. Just remember that you have to differentiate stylistic choices and their function, and most likely aren't able to connect every aspect of George Schmidt's naturalism criteria. Creativity is dead, don't even tempt me.
I'm not exactly sure what the point of this tirade is, for Deviant Crow just said that stylistic choices aren't above criticism. Deviant never said that anti-realism is inherently a problem, yet you're over here giving examples of stuff that isn't realistic while saying this isn't bad. I mean, you're right, it isn't bad because it's stylized, but that's not Deviant Crow's point. So you're still using the straw man fallacy.
Cheese.
So it begs the question, who are you to say that the design is flawed? Art is probably one of the most subjective things you can critique, and it isn't something that can be easily determined to be right or wrong. I think one of the issues I take is that we can't even have a discussion about this. As in the case of Kasumi here, we can't even have the discussion about art and choices simply because the character is 15, and because the artist doesn't want to have a discussion about it because they proceed to feel like they have a moral grandstand.
Okay, first, you're not entitled to a discussion. You never are. Huh? Is there literally anything wrong with not wanting to have a discussion about something? Huh? Also, I love how you bring up that art is subjective, yet you totally miss the point that they are expressing their subjective opinion on art. And yeah, I know someone's gonna come in here and say, well, they didn't say it was their subjective opinion either. Do they have to? Does a person really need to qualify their own subjective opinions by saying, oh, it's subjective, by the way? It should be, common sense that, yeah, if they're telling something about art, it's probably their opinion.
This point will bite your ass so hard later on that one of your feathered ass cheeks will fall off. Remember this. Oh, I just realized while editing. Yeah, if it is supposedly common sense that opinions on art are subjective, why did you have the need to inform Carmen that his subjective opinion on Nessa's anatomy is not above criticism? How did you miss the point on Carmen expressing his subjective opinion and that he knows that art opinions are subjective? Double standards, ladies and gentlemen.
So, citation needed? Like, if you're going to say that Crow said this stuff about Nessa not being above criticism towards Common, while claiming that this leads to a double standard, then you probably should show this in a clip. In no way is this a requirement, but I tried to search for the double standard myself, and I really couldn't find it. So if you make a claim, then you should provide the evidence behind it. And that's about it. Don't get me wrong, there is still more to the video, but Nico's points significantly improve after this. I'm Toganium, and I hope you enjoyed the video.